Bronwyn, but the point here is, Australia is divided, and how can you actually build a sense of trust? And I believe Scott Morrison is going to wear this if he actually, we got close, didn't we, Bronwyn, where we started hearing about it being a national emergency, and maybe it is. Because if it becomes a national emergency, Morrison can actually take over, the Prime Minister can actually take over and push these premiers out of the way. That's my rough understanding of where things could go.
Well, Gary, I think we have to go right back to Tours. We are now being asked very readily to reassess the AstraZeneca vaccination and take it and accept the risk that some people will die from it. But the same principle is not applied to the virus itself. We've got a situation where we have so few deaths compared to the rest of the world from the virus. We have contained it because we've shut our borders, our international borders. But we now, to get to freedom, have to accept that with vaccination, there are still some people who will die from the virus. But we have to go back to normality. So the principles have to be applied evenly. If we don't do that, this country will be shut down forever. We have these rather hysterical premiers telling us that, in fact, we are going to eliminate the virus. That is impossible. It will be around forever. Oh. We're going to have to learn to live with it like we've learned to live with influenza. But at the same time as all this is going on, we have a state premier telling us it's a national emergency. We have the Victorian premier telling the New South Wales premier to put a ring of steel around the city and telling her how to run New South Wales. We have the Queensland premier over there in Tokyo having a lovely time and closing the borders immediately. The announcement of the winning of the Games for 2032 announced. We are divided on the basis that the vast majority of people are not financially affected by what is happening. It is the minority of people who are the small business people, who are the tradies, who are the people who are not in a position of being on some sort of predictable and fixed income that is going to come whatever transpires. And they are the people who are being sacrificed to the other people who say, we're not being affected financially by any of this, and we support the lockdown. In fact, we'd like it to go on a bit longer or a bit tougher. That's where the divide in the nation is. And yet it is those small business people who are the producers of wealth for our nation. This is where the recovery is going to have to come for our nation to get back on its feet. And in the whole time that we're having this bickering, what we've seen is that the Prime Minister is seen to have lost power. He let the genie out of the bottle when he let those premiers be his equal in the so-called National Cabinet. They, being the heads of sovereign states, which the states are, and the Commonwealth being not sovereign, its powers are limited to what's in the Constitution, means that the Commonwealth has to use the powers that it has. And it has enormous powers under the Biosecurity Act. Some people will argue that it's not constitutional itself. But nonetheless, as it remains on the books, it is the law of the land until sometime in the future it is challenged and the High Court says X, Y, or Z. So there is power there to be used. And there is the provision in the Constitution that when the Commonwealth legislates and covers the field, that the legislation of the states is subordinate and therefore the Commonwealth prevails. So there is a need for the Prime Minister to say he's got to take charge. He's got an election coming up in March, and those Labor premiers who've been given all this relay and the Prime Minister said nice things about them, they will gang up on him like there is no tomorrow.